right, so it's time to start plating, and this may look kind of like a mess. It's kind of what happens when you have a lot of different components. If you were working in a restaurant, you have a little bit more streamlined, but for today, I just kind of wanted to really show you all the meats and pasta that we're going to need today. So I have my cake, obviously. I have all my sauces over here. The almond lace cookies that I've made. I have some extra chocolate in piping bags in case I decide I want a little bit more. I have an ice cream scoop sitting in hot water. I have my ice cream. I have some plates. Today I'm going to do a couple different versions, but if I was doing all the same version, I'd have a bunch of different, or the same plates. I also have my chantilly cream and my piping bag fitting with a coupler because, again, I'm experimenting today, so I don't need, or I need to be able to change it as I go. And my chocolate garnish over there. So it does look like a lot, but these are all the components that you're going to need. If we were doing a big plate up, this would be a little bit different, but again, today I'm just going to show you just a couple options. Definitely not the end-all be-all to plated desserts, but just a couple different variations that we can do with the components that we have here today. So the first plate I'm going to do is going to be incredibly simple, and I am putting on my gloves because this is ready to eat food. Definitely want to have gloves on at this point. I'm going to do a really, really simple one because I talked about this in our live demo where this chocolate is really great for a preset dessert. And preset desserts are usually simpler, mostly because of the fact of the size of the plate. So you can see here that this plate is really, really small. Oops. I think I have an extra top here. This plate is really small on purpose because it needs to fit in the place setting. When we have kind of buffet or seating, we usually people usually cram a lot of people on a table, so they're going to have room for like their entree plate, their silverware will be here, glasses here, so the preset dessert is already there when they arrive, so it needs to be on a really small plate. So you can see like my hand is 8 inches if I spread it from here to here, so it is about 6 inches, so it's a pretty small plate. And that happens a lot when we have preset desserts. We get tiny plates that we have to work with. But it does mean that it's a simpler plating, which is nice because that's a lot less labor intensive. And again, this is usually for catered events. You don't really have preset dessert in restaurants. What's the word? So I'm going to do what a lot of chefs call like the swoosh, which is kind of fancy, but also very quick and easy. So basically, I'm going to put a dot of sauce, and then I'm going to take a spoon and I'm going to swoosh through it. And I can do that a couple of ways. I can do a straight line, or I can do a curve. I think I'm just going to do a straight line for this one. So I'm just going to make a little dollop of the raspberry sauce, and then I'm going to take my spoon, and I'm just going to drag. And all of a sudden, I kind of have just a nice little design. Again, very quick, very low skill involved. And then I'm going to add my cake on here now. I like to add the cake from the back, so if I'm looking at this, I want this to be in the upper right corner, so I'm going to turn it like that, yep. Then with the offset spatula, I'm going to grab one of my slices of cake. If we were doing this preset, I would be doing this with already frozen cake. That just means that it's going to stay fresh a little bit longer and it's going to be easier to work with. So now I have to be a little careful because, again, this plate is small, so I really want to make sure it's nice and centered so it's not too much on the lip. But I have my offset spatula underneath, and I'm just going to pull back while I'm holding with my finger, and then I'm just going to let it drop without my offset spatula touching the plate. That's going to smear chocolate all over. All right. So then I can go ahead and come in with some of my whipped cream. And I'm going to do that with a star tip. And I'll probably, again, we're keeping it simple, so I'm going to do a rosette. Just simply like that. Set my piping bag aside, and then I'm gonna go grab some of my chocolate garnish. Which one do I like? I think I'm gonna again grab one of the simpler ones. So this is kind of one of the abstract ones I showed you. And then again, like if you were doing this, you'd want this all to be very simple. So I'm gonna take one of my kind of scrap pieces of the lace cookie. I'll go in with that first. And then in with my chocolate garnish. So here is a great example of something that would be kind of quick and simple to do, relatively low skill, which is great if your staff is relatively low skill, but it really does have a really cool impact. So that's our simple one. Let's move on to a little bit more complex one. So hopefully you can see this is a much larger plate than I did last time. So my hand is 8 inches, so this goes way wider than my hand. If I was in a nice restaurant, I definitely want to choose a bigger plate because that means that I can do a lot more with my dessert. A lot of times people don't realize or don't think about that dessert can be on a full-size entree plate. I almost always plate my desserts on full-size entree plate just because I get to have a little bit more fun with design. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to do a different sauce design, one that's maybe a little bit more complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim for like a curved line, but I'm going to start with alternating dots of each of 2 of my sauces. So I've got my creme anglaise. Oops. I'm wondering why it won't come out. I'm going to take the plastic wrap off. So, just going to try to make them the same size best I can. And just so they kind of run into each other. And again, this is our traditional plated dessert. This plating style is, I don't like the word old-fashioned so much, but definitely not a modern plated dessert here. So I'm going to start and end with the white because I think that's going to look nice, the creme anglaise. And then I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm going to very carefully drag all the way through without lifting up. So I'm going to start up at the top and I'm going to drag through. And you can see it kind of just pulls each sauce into the other one and it kind of creates this little heart pattern. Again, this has got a little bit of an older design, but I tell you what, for Valentine's Day, you can't go wrong with this. You bring this out, especially with this dessert, with the flourless chocolate cake, people are going to be thrilled. So I think next I'll go in with my cake. And I'm going to go to the far side because I'm going to try and put something in here as well. Remember, with our traditional plated desserts, usually there's kind of like a lot of space taken up on the plate. Let's see. Will I be able to fit? I scooch this a little bit more and just about fit this. A little smudge. And put that right there. So this is the little cup that I made out of the lace cookie, and this is going to hold my ice cream, okay? But I want to do that at the last second. So I want to finish garnishing my cake. So I'm going to go in here with my whipped cream. But I'm not going to do a rosette. I'm going to do a technique I like to do, and I don't know that it has a name. It's kind of like a spiral border, but it goes from fat to skinny. And I really like to do this on kind of triangle-shaped stuff. So I go kind of like that, and then I make each one a little bit thinner. So again, just a different way to kind of do the same thing. Now I'll grab my chocolate garnish. So I'm going to do a little bit different. So this is, I don't know if you remembered, I kind of did like the back and forth and it didn't stay together when I picked it up. And I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to do a couple of them. So these are just the loops that I had made. But I think that will look kind of cute. Oops, except for that one broke. Whenever you make chocolate garnish, you always want to make extra. Especially if you have hot hands like I do. You also want to remember that for whatever reason, I don't know why, but our eyes like odd numbers. So like, I wouldn't really want there to be 2 loops. 3 loops is going to be a little bit better. Okay, maybe I would pull that one a little bit forward. But again, we're just experimenting today with a couple different techniques. All right, and then last, for this plate, I'm going to put my ice cream. And I've had my ice cream scoop sitting in hot water so that it'll scoop a little bit easier for me. And I'm just going to shake it off to make sure I'm not getting a bunch of water into my ice cream. And I'll do a nice scoop. Scrape it off on the sides. And then what I like to do is I rub my hand on the back of the ice cream scoop, which, yes, it's incredibly cold, but it's just going to help loosen your ice cream scoop or your ice cream ball so it comes out of the scoop a little bit cleaner. So I'm just going to scoop it straight into this cup. Oops. If I was doing this for a large event, I would have all these ice cream scoops already made and in the freezer, so I'm just dropping them because this cake is very, very time consuming to add ice cream to each plate. So that's it for this one. This is around to a little bit more formal plate dessert. Again, with the ice cream, it would be preset because obviously your ice cream would melt. But this would be great for a catered event or a restaurant. Okay, so in this plate, we're going to use the plate that we did in the chocolate garnish video, where we took our coating chocolate and we piped some swirls. So we're going to use this plate today. So I'm going to start off with my sauce again. We typically start with our sauce just because it's the lowest thing on the plate, just the easiest, especially if you're doing like a really detailed sauce design. It makes it a lot easier. So this one is pretty detailed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my raspberry sauce because it's going to give me this really cool contrast of color, and I'm going to fill in the holes that I've created. So if I use the white one, the creme anglaise, you wouldn't really see it that well on this particular plate. If I use the chocolate, you wouldn't really see the chocolate lines. It would be not as clear. So I'm just going to pipe inside each section just a little bit of my sauce. Just like that. Being careful not to do too much. And then I'm just going to take a toothpick and spread it out towards the edges. And this, again, is a little bit more time consuming. This is not something I would do for, an event of 400 people. Maybe I would do this for a small event that's really fancy, or maybe I would do it in a restaurant where I might have, in a restaurant that has the time to be able to do something like this. But you kind of almost get, I think, like this kind of stained glass look, because you can kind of see a little bit through the raspberry sauce, but you have like the dark edges around it. I think it's a pretty neat presentation, personally. It's one of my favorite traditional techniques. So I'm going to turn it around to get my chocolate cake in here. Womp womp. So sometimes that happens. So I'm just going to clean up that side of the plate real quick, and then I'll show you how to really do it. Here I come with the chocolate cake, and again, I'm going to set down the tip of it first, and then I'm going to hold my thumb towards the back while I slowly pull out my offset spatula, making sure not to touch my offset spatula to the plate because it'll cause a smooge, which I don't want. So I can turn this back around. A little bit of a smudge there. And if I do get a smudge, I can come back with a clean paper towel and clean that off. All right, so I'm gonna switch the piping tips for this one. So I'm gonna go to a petal tip or a rose tip. So I just took off the ring and I took off the star tip, put the petal tip on, and now, oops, just screwing that on. Super easy to be able to switch. Again, you wouldn't necessarily normally do this for plain desserts, but you do this all the time in cake decorating. So I'm going to do kind of similar to the last one where I start fat, but I go smaller, but with a different tip, it's going to look a little bit different. So I want to choose the thin side of the tip to be facing the top. And I'm going to hold it at like a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to make some spirals. And then pull it out. So here we just have a different way of doing kind of the exact same skill, but just a different piping tip. One thing I want to point out, which is really interesting, is that as whipped cream sits in your piping bag and it touches your warm hand, it actually continues to whip. So you might notice that this is a little bit more bubbly than the last one, and that's why. So that's why you always want to just on a hint under whip. You don't want to get to stiff beaks because it's just going to keep whipping in your piping bag. And it also shows you that you want to work fast when you're doing it. Obviously, I can't work fast today because I'm kind of doing a bunch of different things. But if I was doing this for a big plate up or something like that, I would be working very quickly. All right, so now I think I might change my mind. I probably should have done this already. I think I'm going to see if I can get my almond lace cookie. It's my little spiral. Let's see if it will fit. Maybe not quite. Maybe I'll use that for something else. If I had made this space a little bit taller, that would have been really cool though. I like that there. So that's the spiral that we made. I think that's a pretty cool look. And my chocolate garnish. Let's see. Maybe for this one, I'll do another kind of abstract one, but maybe like I like the kind of got a lot of swirly stuff going on, so I picked one of the swirlier ones. For this one, I didn't have space on the size plate to make room really for something to go for my ice cream. Again, remember when you put ice cream, you don't ever want to put directly on the plate because it's just going to start melting and running everywhere. So I think on the next one, I will add ice cream again. So in the last couple videos, I've used white or cream plates, and those are kind of the most common, but you do not ever have to be limited to white. White does make a lot of things kind of pop, but some things it doesn't. For example, our ice cream or our creme anglaise is not going to pop. So here's just an example on another colored plate. This plate is a little bit more also traditional just because it's kind of got some variance in color. It's kind of like road border it's got, just makes it kind of more of a traditional plate to use. So I think it's going to plate really fun. So I'm going to do another kind of simple sauce design, but very traditional. And this is going to use all three of my sauces. So basically, I'm just going to make a bunch of dots. Simple as that. I want to kind of visualize where my cake is going to go. And then I'm going to do some dots. So I'm going to do various sizes. So I'm going to start with my chocolate sauce. And I'm going to make just some different size dots. And this one can be a little time consuming, but is a little bit lower skill level, which is good. A lot of times in restaurants, the pastry chef doesn't stay long enough to plate. So we're asking service staff to do the plating for us. So we need to make sure that we're giving them plate designs that they can handle, because we don't want to make it too difficult and then they do a poor job. because then your work looks bad. And that is definitely not what you want. Like I need something right there. And again, this is just easier when the dessert's not in place, just because you have room for the dessert bottle, but I can always add a little bit more if I need to. All right, so I'm gonna go in with my cake. I might not let quite enough room, and that's okay. Often I'll have a template, like if I had this for servers to do, I would have a template, a paper template they can literally just put on the plate so that they know exactly where to put everything. But that's okay. I'm not sad about it, so I can take a look now and see, do I want any more dots anywhere else? I might want one right there. Something like that. Okay. So now I can come in with my almond lace, and I'm going to try to get some good height on this dessert. So I'm going to actually add it directly here. So I'm going to give it a little push so it gets a little bit stuck, but this could have been added on the plate as well. I'm probably going to be pushing my luck, but y'all know I like to do that. So I'm going to take my ice cream and I'm going to try to put it right there. Actually, I'm going to do my whipped cream first. And whipped cream does not have to go on the dessert. It can go on the plate. So maybe I'll do that with this one. Sorry, my chantilly cream. Remember, those are the same thing. So this heavy cream, the chantilly cream has been sitting in my bag for a while. So I'm just going to replace it with some new, so it doesn't look too kind of granulated as it sits in the tiny bag. Will look a little bit more granulated, which isn't ideal. Squirt a little bit out. I think I want a nice little dollop right there. So it's kind of like a tall rosette like you might have on a cupcake. Then I think I'll go in here with my ice cream. Again, hot water on my ice cream scoop. Scrape it off on the side so it's nice and flat. Use my hand to heat it up so it comes out smoothly. And if I was really going to do this, like for real, I would definitely freeze this scoop ahead of time, like make it prior to service so it was rock hard and I could pick it up and I could like simply put it in. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult today. Again, it's not rock hard, but I'm going to try and push my luck. Hey, not too bad. So just like that. Then I can come in with some of my garnish. And I think I'm going to stick with the height that I'm kind of working with and give it a little bit more height, maybe. Oops, I'll pick one of the taller garnishes. Up against my ice cream. So here's another traditional plate of dessert. All right, I'm going to show you guys a magic trick. I hope you're ready. And I hope you can see, so this heavy cream has sat out and it's warm, and some of it was in the piping bag, which was on my hands. My hands are warm and it's kind of gotten grainy looking. That's definitely not what you want. So here's my magic trick. I'm just going to take a little bit of heavy cream. I'm going to pour it in. And I'm just going to gently fold it in. You're going to see that all that graininess just goes away. Okay, it's not magic, it's science, but it's still fun. And it's nice to know that it's not all ruined. Just like that, it's much, much better. Now I can pipe it again. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to finish this, or a way you can finish off this flourless chocolate cake if you were to sell it retail. So remember, I did the one with the drips, and I thought that would be a little bit cooler for retail. First, I'm going to tell you what I would have done if I knew that I was going to do this part of the demo, or if I knew I was going to do this for retail, is I wouldn't have left this on the parchment. I would have put this on the cake. I would put it directly onto a cake circle or a cake cardboard, just because it would look a lot cleaner and the drips would be just kind of still there and visible. But I didn't plan ahead, and I didn't really think about it until I was in the middle of that demo. But then I thought, hey, this would be cool. So just to show you, since I already have it, all I did was I cut the parchment. But I definitely wouldn't want to serve it this way. It's not really a nice way. You definitely want it directly on to the cake board. But anyway, that's not what I did. Y'all know I like to think on my feet a little bit. And sometimes great things come out of mistakes. So it's good to make mistakes a little bit too. So what I like to do when I'm finishing a cake, like a traditional style cake like this, what I like to do is I like to kind of portion it out by making rosettes across the cake. So basically I would be making a rosette per portion. So I'm going to use my chantilly cream for that. And I'm going to start directly opposite of me, and I'm going to make a rosette. Then I'm going to turn it all the way, and then I'm going to do one directly in half. Doing it this way helps you make sure, instead of like going all the way around, doing it this way helps make sure that they're as evenly spaced apart as possible. And also, turning the cake, make sure all the rosettes are going in the exact same direction. And then I can do the same thing. So now I'm going to do one here, one at the top, one at the bottom. Again, turning so I know every rosette is in the same direction. And then I'm going to go in between and put one in the center. Like that. So they're pretty evenly spaced apart, and that's how you achieve that. All right, so the next thing I can do is I can add some chocolate garnish to these. And again, I wasn't planning on doing this demo, so I don't have the exact same garnishes for each one, but you can see how that could look really, really nice. So I'm going to use almost enough of this one. Oops. So I can use these kind of tall ones. These aren't exactly the same again, since I was just kind of playing around earlier, but they're similar. It's nice to use an offset spatula when you can with chocolate because our hands are hot and they can melt the chocolate. And if we melt the chocolate, then the chocolate breaks, which isn't fun. Another great decoration for this would be some fresh raspberries. Same with the plates that we did. Fresh raspberries would be really, really great. They're not in season right now, so they don't always taste super, so I'm kind of more likely to avoid them. Same with strawberries. This would be really, really great with this dessert, but again, not in season. Most berries are in season in the spring, so that's kind of like the best time to have them. This is something you could do like for your plate of dessert as well. Like if you went ahead and cut this whole cake, you could go ahead and put the whipped cream and the garnish ahead of time, like the day of that it's going to be served, and let your service staff go from there. But that just gives them like one step that's already done. It's a little bit of a difficult step. But just like that, we've kind of taken something and really stepped it up a notch. Some places will pre-cut cakes. I don't like to pre-cut cakes because I don't really know what serving size that people are going to want, but I like to give them guides. So this is a pretty rich cake. If I was going to eat it, I'd probably only have like a half a slice. But somebody might want a giant slice. Who knows? You know, we don't like to decide that for my customers. If I'm going to sell like a whole cake. Also, it just dries out, doesn't last as long. The more you cut, the more surface area is exposed to the air, and it just doesn't last as long. But now this is ready to go into a case, and it looks nice and fancy. So we just We just took something, the exact same method, and we made it into multiple products. Could work for a retail bakery or could work in a restaurant.